The sun was beginning to lower itself gently behind the tall trees in Maplewood Park, casting long golden shadows across the grass. It was the kind of evening that people in their 50s and 60s often remember, with a soft smile, the kind of light that makes you think of summers long ago, when life felt simpler and supper bells rang from open back doors. Daniel Harper stood near the park bench, hands tucked into the pockets of his worn denim jacket. At 48, he carried himself with the steady posture of a man who had learned to hold things together, even when they felt like they were coming apart. His brown hair was touched with early gray at the temples, and there were faint lines around his eyes from both laughter and long nights. Across the lawn, his son, 8-year-old Owen, was standing face to face with a woman Daniel didn't recognize. Owen had his mother's curl-soft, light brown, bouncing slightly as he spoke. He wore a bright yellow t-shirt, denim shorts, and white sneakers that had seen better days. His small hand was extended politely, and the woman was shaking it with a warm, attentive smile. Daniel's first instinct was caution. In today's world, caution came quickly. He started walking toward them, his steps measured but firm. The woman looked to be in her early 50s. She wore a simple, cream-colored dress with delicate pink flowers scattered across it. The dress moved gently in the breeze. Her blonde hair was swept into a neat low bun, and her posture was straight yet relaxed. There was kindness in her expression, the kind that doesn't feel practiced, the kind that feels lived in. Owen turned and waved when he saw his father approaching. "Dad, this is Mrs. Carter." Daniel gave a polite nod. "Good evening." The woman smiled. "Good evening. M. Eleanor Carter." Her voice was calm, steady, almost soothing. Daniel glanced at his son. "Owen, buddy, we don't usually. It's okay, Dad," Owen said quickly, his eyes bright. "Mrs. Carter was just sitting by herself. I told her we're having spaghetti tonight. I invited her to come." Daniel felt his shoulders tighten. He forced a small smile. "That's thoughtful of you, son. But we don't invite strangers to dinner." There was no anger in his tone, just concern. Eleanor laughed softly, not offended. "He's quite persuasive." Owen looked between them. "She said she just moved here. She doesn't know anybody yet." Daniel hesitated. There was something about the way Eleanor stood upon, patient, unhurried. She didn't seem awkward or defensive. She simply waited, as if she understood the weight of a father's protective instincts. Daniel crouched down beside Owen. "We need to be careful, okay? We don't know Mrs. Carter." Owen's voice lowered. "But Dad, you always say nobody should eat alone." Daniel paused. He had said that, many times. After his wife passed 3 years earlier, neighbors had brought casseroles and pies. He remembered how those small acts had carried him through evenings that felt impossibly long. He remembered sitting at the kitchen table, staring at 2 empty chairs. Nobody should eat alone. He stood back up slowly. Eleanor spoke gently. "Mr. Harper, I understand your hesitation. Truly, if it helps, I can give you my phone number. Or we can exchange addresses. I live over on Birchwood Lane." Daniel studied her face. There was sincerity there. No rush, no pressure. And then, almost unexpectedly, he felt something else. Loneliness. The kind he recognized because it had lived in his own house for years. He exhaled. "Well," he said, his voice softer now, "I suppose one extra plate of spaghetti won't hurt." Owen's grin spread wide across his face. "Really?" Daniel nodded. "Really." Eleanor placed her hand lightly over her heart. "Thank you. That's very kind." They walked home together through the quiet neighborhood streets. The air carried the faint scent of cut grass and blooming roses. It reminded Daniel of evenings from his childhood, when doors were left unlocked and neighbors knew one another's names. Inside the small white house on Cedar Street, the kitchen felt warm and familiar. Framed photographs lined the walls, vacation snapshots, school portraits, one faded wedding picture that Daniel hadn't yet found the courage to move. Eleanor noticed it but said nothing. Owen set the table carefully, counting plates twice just to be sure. Daniel stirred the pot of spaghetti sauce, the scent of garlic and tomatoes filling the room. He felt oddly aware of the moment, aware that sometimes life shifts in the smallest, quietest ways. They sat down together. Conversation started simply. Eleanor spoke about moving to town after many years in Chicago. She described wanting something slower, something more rooted. Owen asked her what her favorite ice cream flavor was. "Vanilla," she said with a smile. "It's underrated." Daniel chuckled. "My late wife used to say that." The table grew quiet for a second. Eleanor's expression softened. Sorry. Daniel nodded. Thank you. There was no discomfort in the silence, just understanding. After dinner, Eleanor insisted on helping with the dishes. She rolled up the sleeves of her floral dress without hesitation. As they stood side by side at the sink, Daniel finally asked, So, what line of work brought you here? She hesitated only briefly. I've been the CEO of Carter Logistics for the past 15 years. Daniel nearly dropped the plate he was drying. Carter Logistics? The national shipping company? She smiled modestly. Yes, Daniel stared at her. That's a multi-million-dollar corporation. She nodded. It is, he blinked. And you just sit alone in parks? She laughed softly. Sometimes, titles don't change the need for conversation. He felt his face grow warm. All that caution, all that worry. And yet here she was, sleeves rolled up, rinsing plates in his modest kitchen as if she had nowhere else she'd rather be. I almost didn't let Owen invite you, he admitted. I know, she said gently. And you were right to be careful. She paused before adding, but I'm glad you said yes. Later, as the evening settled into a peaceful quiet, Eleanor prepared to leave. Owen walked her to the door. Will you come again? He asked. If your father allows it, she replied with a playful glance. Daniel stepped forward. You're welcome anytime. After she left, Owen looked up at his dad. See? She was nice, Daniel smiled, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. Yes, she was. That night, after Owen had gone to bed, Daniel sat at the kitchen table alone, but it didn't feel quite as lonely. He thought about assumptions, about how easy it is to judge a moment before it unfolds. He thought about how his son, with his open heart and fearless kindness, had seen something he almost missed. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor became a quiet presence in their lives. She never spoke about her wealth unless asked. She preferred talking about books, gardening, and the importance of handwritten thank you notes. She helped Owen with a school project about transportation, drawing diagrams on scrap paper with careful precision. One afternoon, she sat in the backyard garden with Daniel, sunlight filtering through the trees. You've done a remarkable job raising him, she said. Daniel looked down at his hands. I've just tried to show up. That's more than many do. He hesitated. I worried about inviting you, about safety, about appearances. She nodded. Understandable, but Owen didn't see any of that, Daniel continued. He just saw someone sitting alone. Eleanor smiled. Children remind us of who we used to be. Before the world taught us to be afraid. Daniel leaned back in his chair, the breeze warm against his face. In his 50s, he had begun to understand that life wasn't about dramatic moments or grand gestures. It was about dinners shared, conversations held, doors opened when it would be easier to close them. Months later, Carter Logistics announced a new community outreach program in Maplewood funding for small businesses, scholarships for local students, improvements to neighborhood parks. Daniel wasn't surprised, but what moved him most wasn't the money. It was the fact that Eleanor still preferred spaghetti at his kitchen table to the finest restaurant in town. One evening, as autumn leaves drifted across the yard, Owen asked, Dad, why do you think Mrs. Carter talks to us when she could talk to anyone? Daniel thought for a moment. Because, he said slowly, it's not about who you can talk to. It's about who listens. Owen nodded thoughtfully, and Daniel realized something simple. Something steady. Kindness doesn't check resumes. It doesn't measure bank accounts. It doesn't ask for credentials. It notices someone sitting alone and offers a seat at the table. In the quiet rhythm of their lives, that small invitation had changed more than one heart. And on many evenings, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gentle gold, Daniel would watch his son laugh beside Eleanor in the garden and think sometimes, the person you're most careful about keeping out is the very one meant to walk in. And sometimes it takes a child's open hand to remind us how to open our own.